Hello, welcome to my channel. My name is Kendall, and today a bit of a serious topic. These are just things we need to be aware of with fountain pens, and that is the dangers. So, very serious topic. Just kidding. But I'm going to go over the 5 dangers. I'm going to save the last as kind of a surprise. But I'm going to give you an overview and then I'll dive in a little bit. As I go into these, maybe I'm missing one. So comment below if I miss a danger or the tips that I give along the way if you've got something that I've missed. So danger number 1, the fear of missing out. So this includes empty wallet syndrome, and this includes not being satisfied with what you have. Just you're wanting to search for the next thing, and I do think this is a big deal. So there's ways to get around this and ways to deal with it. Number 1, setting a budget. Not going into debt for things that you want, like impulse purchases. Setting rules, setting limits. Some of it's just getting to know what you like in the hobby in general. I know starting out, I made purchases I wouldn't do again. But one thing you can do is choosing the rabbit holes that you go down. So instead of buying pens, you might look at inks. Now you can get into a whole scenario there, and bottles will last way longer than you think. So my recommendation is samples if you're really hunting after that ink that you want. And I have a limit for myself when it comes to bottles. I'm trying to do, they just last so long. So I'm trying to do a one in, one out policy. I have 7 or 8 bottles, so that may not seem like a lot, but I have not finished a bottle yet. So they may not look huge, but yeah, they last a long time. So I recommend something like this, sample vial holder. This one I got on Amazon, pretty good price, and it will hold 50 vials. And I don't ever plan on getting more than 50. So I've kind of set a rule there. So setting some limits, some rules. I'd be curious to hear some of your rules. I've heard of some with pens, just like a one in, one out policy. Another thing is looking for discounts. That can help. Fountain pen day, there's sales, there's all kinds of things you can do. You can also look at more budget-friendly pens. I've covered a lot of Chinese pens that I like. So that's its whole topic. But yeah, looking for deals, setting limits, I think that's a good one. Moving on. Number 2. The danger of unwanted attention. And I'm going to say this is when you're out and about or when you're in a work setting. Some pens, they're just much more attention grabbing, and that may be good. Maybe that's fun. I've definitely taken pens like this to work because I like to engage with people, and they say, "Hey, what's that?" I can show them, so that's good. And then there's some pens that are more in between, where you don't mind standing out maybe a little bit. Something like the TWSBI. I think it's a good one. But then you can go for something much more minimal. So an option, something like this, Jinhao 80, which looks a lot like the Lamy 2000. So something minimal like this. And along with this same danger is the fear of your pens getting unwanted attention when they're on your desk. Your pen's walking away from somebody, or someone borrows it, they don't give it back. So Yeah, I think you can one idea is you can have something like pilot varsities or platinum preppies that you can lend out. People can borrow, and if they walk away with it, that's not so bad, and maybe it will encourage them into the hobby. You never know. So there are some items or some ways around that. Let's move on to danger number 3. This is the topic of unexpected mess. And this is kind of a bigger topic. There's some sub pieces in here. So let's talk about the mess. Number 1, you can have some feathering or bleeding. And, if this is work documents or papers that you need to have not do that. Well, one solution is having ballpoints around. Uh, gasp. They do work well, and they actually, can be quite enjoyable to use. But another option is just getting something with a finer nib. So fine or extra fine, and you may need to use more of the traditional blues or blacks, things that are more work acceptable. So I think that's an easy one to overcome is feathering and bleeding. Subpart 2, burping. So I had an experience where I had this vacuum filler, so Wingsung 699, and I was in a meeting. Now, luckily, no one saw this, but uh, I all of a sudden and I had it filled with writer's blood, and I had ink everywhere. I had it all over my notebook that I was using. I had it on my hands, and I nonchalantly asked for someone to pass me the box of tissues, and yeah, it could have been a lot worse. I've heard some really big horror stories. So some tips. One is with these pens you have a shutoff. So if it's a vac filler, you could engage the shutoff and just keep it that way. Just open it as needed. Another thing is, if it is a big capacity eyedropper style filling, I found that if you hold the nib up once in a while, it will help just equalize the air pressure so that you're not getting that same problem. Same idea as going on a plane. Really, the big tip there is just keep the nibs up, and no matter what pen it is, that air pressure will equalize. So yeah, you can keep the nib up now and then. Also, you can limit the pens that you use when you're out and about or in public settings. You limit those to pens that work well, that don't have this issue. Something like cartridge converter pens, things like that. Next sub point is leaking. So, and this can be leaking in the cap. This can be leaking in the section. This can be leaking on the cap that then leads to the section. Sometimes you've got a pen. This one has a snap cap, and it's a rather loud snap. And anytime you have something like that, it can cause little bits of ink to get into the into the cap. So that can be an issue, and one of those things you don't see. So I've had a situation where I took the cap off and I didn't notice that there was ink on the section, and I go to write, and now I've got really inky hands. We'll get into inky hands in just a moment. That's kind of a separate topic, but having ink on the section or ink that's in the cap and it just kind of rolls out and it spills onto something. Well, how can you avoid that? I think knowing your pens is really a big tip. Just knowing what they do, how they operate, getting used to those before you take them into a work setting. And then sometimes if there is a leak, you can remedy that if like silicone grease or something else. But anyway, next subtopic is smearing. And I think the danger of smearing is mostly if as you're getting used to fountain pens. You are not aware of how they work in that same way. Uh, so, needing to flip a page quickly, or, for lefties, if you're writing left-handed, you can have issues. And I've heard a lot of folks say if you're left-handed, fountain pens just aren't for you. That's false. I've seen lots of people that, making videos, people that are left-handed. So certainly it can be done, but it is a different situation. So one thing I've used as a remedy in my pocket badass book, as I like to call it, I've got an easy removable blotter page, and I like to keep something like that in my notebooks. So having a blotter page is handy for something like that. Okay, last subtopic under this unexpected messiness, which is inky fingers. Now, I do believe that inky fingers are just a badge of honor. That's just part of the hobby, and there's nothing wrong with it. In fact, I embrace it. I don't do it on purpose, but just know that you're going to have inky fingers. That's okay. So, some strategies. You may not want to have lots of ink on your fingers when you're out. So, you could do any cleaning of your pens, changing of inks while you're at home, and then I've heard, if you shower afterward and shampoo, a lot of that will help. Goulet Pens has a hand scrub. I have not tried it, but I've heard good things. So anyway, I think first of all, it's just part of the hobby. And if you're out and about and you see someone with ink on their fingers, that's maybe a good indication that they're part of our tribe. So, okay. Danger number 4 is running out of ink or having a pen not working when you need it to. So particularly when you're out. When you're at home, that's different, but you're out, you run out of ink, or your pen stops working, then you're in trouble. So here's some tips. I think, first is just getting used to putting your cap back on. I think, being new to fountain pens, you maybe aren't used to that, but the other thing is always keeping a backup. Just keep more than one pen. First of all, it's just fun to have, variety. It's fun to have variety of pens, variety of colors, but you don't want to be left high and dry if you have a problem. So having a backup pen, also having a practical way to see your ink levels. Now, if you've got, translucent where you can see, that's great. If you've got something that's a cartridge converter that you can easily unscrew, you can check the cartridge, so that's great. But if you have a piston filler that doesn't have an ink window or things like that, it's just make sure you have backup pens. So, and the other thing is if you use cartridges, you can bring extra cartridges with you. But I do think just having extra pens is my biggest tip there. Okay, this is the last one. This is an unexpected danger of fountain pens. And that is the wanting to use your pens all the time. This is a good thing, in my opinion. This is a really good thing. But it can gobble up some of your time. Time seems to move more quickly when you're enjoying yourself, you're in a state of mindfulness or reflection, you're playing with your pens or your inks and you lose track of time. So um, one of the dangers is that you have these pens, you want to use them, but and this urge, you want to use your pens, but you don't really have anything to use it on. So I've found a lot of things, and I thought I'd just run through a list of things you can use your pens for. I'd be curious what you guys use your pens for. Did they make my list or not? For one, I don't do art with my pens, but I know a lot of folks do, so artwork is a great idea. Another thing, so as far as things to use your pen on, I do almost all of these. So a daily bullet journal style, where you're just rapid logging the day's events. And I like to do this at the end of the day. What happened? What meetings happened? And these are just bullet point style. So in the bullet journal method, that's pretty common. And then if you come across something that's an experience you want a long form journal on, some will just long form in that place. What I'll do a lot of times is make a to-do, just like I will long form on this later. And I keep a long form journal separate. It's a separate part of my notebook with removable pages, or just a separate book altogether. So you have your rapid logging, then you also have your long form journaling. So those are good. Another one, morning pages. Many of you've heard of this. Basically just a practice to clear your mind first thing in the morning. You can use scratch paper, just stream of consciousness. Maybe you go till you hear your timer for 10 minutes go off, or you go to the end of a page. But it's just a really good, almost a meditative process to just clear your head. Dream journal. Once in a while, you'll have just a crazy dream, and you can keep a formal dream journal. You can just copy it on scratch paper, but I've definitely done that. Goal setting. I think it's important to think about the different areas of your life, your physical health, your mental health, your relationships, your finances, all of these things, and just think about the places you want to be in those areas and to set goals. Now, this other one I'm kind of new to. It's affirmations, and I've never been big into affirmations. This may be worth its own video, but I've always been a little creeped out by the idea of just staring yourself in the mirror and saying these things that aren't true about what you want. It changed for me when I thought of, well, I could write this out. So A, it's an excuse to use my pens. B, I find that the affirmations are a really life-changing experience. But you don't want to lie to yourself in the affirmation. You want to state what it is you're committed to, and why it's important. So really, it includes the what it is, why it's important, how you're going to do that or approach that. So it's a whole deal, but it's really been changing for me. It's been a big deal. Also, I keep lots of lists. I have a list of ideas, a list of things I want to read, movies I want to watch, movies or shows, things I want to watch with my kids, grocery lists, all kinds of lists. So those are good to have. And then there's always, work related, meeting notes, various to-dos. Another use that I use for my pens is just brainstorming. And I'll often get scratch paper for this, and I'm just brainstorming ideas. This could be personal or work. I also keep a log of gratitude, so things that I'm grateful for that day. how amazing a sandwich was, or something funny that my kid said. Just really good things that to be grateful. And I found that gratitude just helps in general. Uh, Also, notes on books. I love to listen to books because I'm busy, but I also like to read. And yeah, podcasts. You come across a great quote. So I do have a big section in my notebook of just inspirational quotes, things that kind of blew my mind as I'm reading something or watching something. So those are great. Um, Another use is problem solving. You've got something on your mind, I'll take a scratch piece of paper and I'll just write the problem out at the top. And then I'll start going through it and I'll just explore some of the pros and cons of the situation. I'll, I'll explore some of the options. You know, what options do you have? And you may not be aware that you have as many options as you do. So I find this to be really good. And by the time you get to the bottom of a page, a lot of times these problems have solved themselves. You'll find things that are just right in front of you. And the last one I'll mention is venting. Sometimes you just need to vent, and you can just get a scratch paper and just write it out, and it does something. It's hard to say what it is, but it's just very beneficial. Overall, I would say mental health is just a big part of this danger. So the danger is that you're maybe going to lose track of time, but and you're going to want excuses to write. But I see this as a good thing, and it's really good for mental health. So let me know what I missed. Did I miss some of the dangers that you weren't aware of with fountain pens? Did I miss a solution, some good tips? I would be anxious to hear about those. Again, thanks for watching, and please like this video. It will help with the algorithms, and please subscribe. I appreciate it, and I will talk to you later on.